Hello, welcome to the new episode of Academic Misfits. Looks like my cat has come into the door. I'm just going to close that. So, I'm Luna Munoz, your host, and I'm going to be talking to Dr. Miriam Ricci, who's a coach and consultant today. Just to get a little background of this podcast, it's really to honor the academic misfits, the people who haven't felt like they've fit in exactly, and those who are trying to find a new way of living, whether that's in academia, but finding a niche or a path where it's their own. It's not given to them by society and told what they should be doing, but they're creating their own way of living, their own way of working, own way of collaborating, or supporting people in academia, and just breaking those systems, breaking down the barriers. For me, I was educated in the U.S., got my PhD, and then I came to Sweden and then the UK, thinking that those systems would be better academic systems. But it was kind of like the Goldilocks trying to find the perfect porridge, and they all tasted, well, as bland as porridge. So, and as a Boricua Caribeña, I didn't really like those bland flavors. So I had to create my own system, did it within academia as much as I could. And then I decided to leave and start my own business. And I realized I have a, neuropicante brain, and quite neurospicy. So, I needed like brighter colors in my life, as you can see. And I left after a redundancy, a layoff, and created my own journey as a business owner. And, this is kind of like my rebel playlist with people that I want to honor who've created very inspiring paths. Some of them, again, within academia, and some of them have left. So it's really about like resetting and reprioritizing what's important. So I hope that this podcast gives you some inspiration. If you work in a university, I hope it gives you a kind of like blueprint for how to create supportive systems. What do people need? And especially when they're a little bit on the sidelines, skating on the edge, what do those people need? How could they be supported? And for all the misfits out there, I just say misfits unite. So we'll go ahead and get started. Speaking to, here we go, Miriam, welcome.
Hello. Hello,
um,
I'm so delighted to be here.
I'm so excited because we've like known each other for almost a year now, or no, more than a
Mhm.
year. And
Yes, yes.
I've seen your journey, and I'm just so impressed with everything that you're doing. And I love the stories that you tell and the way that you connect ideas. So I can see why people still want to work with you, even outside of academia. So, in terms of your consultancy, your coaching, yeah, I just know you're going to go really far. So, yeah, give us a little bit of
Thank you.
introduction, who you are, how you've gotten into academia, and yeah, anything around, your academic experience.
Yes, so where do I start? I mean, yeah, who I am. I guess I can introduce myself as well, now I'm a mom, I'm a single mom. I was born in Italy 51 years ago,
Woohoo.
so in the last century, yeah. Um, and yeah, I've moved to the UK when I was about 24. Yeah, 24. And now I've lived abroad for probably most of my adult life. And in fact, I'm probably now living outside of my country of origin for more years than I've lived there, which is a weird feeling because sometimes I think, who am I? What is my identity? That's been kind of a leitmotif in my life. And when you invited me to this podcast about misfits, I realized I've actually been a misfit in many situations in different guises, and I don't look at it in a negative way. But it just taught me a lot about understanding who I am and in the way I was feeling a misfit. Why was I feeling a misfit? In what situations? And it's a lot about expectations and social norms. So one way I was a misfit when I was younger, when I was still in Italy, is that I was born in the north of Italy, but both of my parents are from the south of Italy and migrated to the north to find a job. And then there is a parallel with my life because I emigrated away, going north again to the UK to find a job that I was happier with. Um, and when I was growing up, there was a lot of, probably still now, but unfortunately, there was a lot of racism in Italy. So people from the north thought they were, very superior to people in the south. And so when my parents moved, it was very hard on them because really they had to demonstrate that they had their place there. And I was bullied when I was a child because of my accent, because people knew I was not from there. I was just born there. So already I felt I was a misfit. Wow. Because I couldn't even feel I have my roots here. So belonging, that sense of belonging. I never felt I really belonged there. Yeah. So yeah, that was the first kind of time I really thought about being a misfit.
Yeah. That's really interesting because it's almost, when I think about the culture in the UK or like the US, there's very much a north-south divide there as well. I mean, for me, I was born in the US, whereas both my parents were born in Puerto Rico. So it was like I felt like a misfit in the US. Yeah, similar to you, but I'm just thinking about the north of, now I'm in the north of England, which is like not as posh as the south of England, and there's a lot of accent discrimination here as well, with which I don't think, well, probably it is as bad as the US. If you're from the south of the US, some people think you're not as smart as people who have a northern accent in the US, but I didn't know that about Italy. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I guess every country they've got their own.
You have to divide on something, whether it's like a football T-shirt, whether you're
exactly.
Liverpool Football Club or Everton.
Exactly, exactly. But in the end, I kind of turn it around because before coming to the UK, I actually did an internship in Luxembourg and Brussels with the European Parliament, and I think there I found a sense of belonging in the sense that I found myself in a very cosmopolitan and very much European environment. And I thought, actually, oh, I really like this. I really like people coming together and not really thinking about their differences, but understanding how those differences are actually the richness that make, human being interesting. Because it's not just you, you can learn so much from others, and it's just interesting. I realized I was curious about learning from other cultures, and yeah, that really stimulated me. But going back a little bit, because that is quite an interesting thing about me. The misfit comes also in a kind of disciplinary point of view, because I have a degree in physics. And I've never done the job of a physicist or anything that could remotely be associated with that in the technical sense. But I guess I was curious about how, things work. And I think physics was interesting for me. And I never regretted studying it, even if I'm not practicing, as a physicist or as a scientist. I think that gave me the kind of, I loved really learning, and then I moved on. So even from a disciplinary point of view, I've never really had a disciplinary kind of focus. And I think that was my undoing later on in academia. But maybe we can talk about that when I get there.
It sounds like academia wasn't amenable to that kind of way of thinking.
No, because from physics, then what did I do? Yeah, I graduated, and then funnily enough, I decided I didn't want to be in academia. So after I got my first degree in Italy, which we call laurea, And it's basically a mixture in those days, before all the education, the higher education system was kind of made a bit more similar across Europe. My first degree was almost equivalent to a master's degree nowadays, because it was a longer degree.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So after that, I wanted to work in industry. I was very determined to get a job in industry, and I looked. So after doing my internship at the European Parliament, I got a job in the UK in the energy industry. That didn't last very long, because I realized I really wanted to do research. So I kind of went back into my academic self and thinking maybe I want to do more research. So I kind of spent a few years understanding what do I want to do. I did a mini project at Imperial College with a view to do a PhD, and then in the end I didn't go for the PhD there, but I found a PhD topic back in Italy. So I went back.
Wow.
I know, and it was all about innovation and how to translate scientific kind of innovations into the industrial world, but also into policy. So it was an intersection between science policy, technology policy, science, all of these things together. And that appealed to me because it wasn't just one discipline, it was loads of things.
And
So I was studying.
did you already have like links with industry? Like you kind of understood what their challenges were at that point then? Or were you just like, I want to be able to contribute? Like what was
So
behind it?
yeah, it was, well, there were several things. First of all, I would be part of a team in a project. So there was already a project there. And it was about understanding the industrial applications of electron accelerators. So there was already a project, and they were looking for a researcher to join as a PhD, so a PhD student to join the project. Yeah, and that was really interesting because it put me in touch with a lot of different businesses that might use the technology, and I just discovered a huge amount of stuff that I didn't know about. So the PhD for me was also, obviously a way of get more knowledge for myself, because I love learning, but also understanding how that knowledge can translate into applications, and also thinking about how do we. I was very interested in policy and how do we foster innovation. So and then there was an opportunity to go and do part of my PhD in Manchester. And so I came back to the UK again. And after I defended my dissertation and I completed my PhD, I decided to stay in the UK, and I found a job as a postdoc in Salford University.
So you were staying up north.
Studying. I know, yeah. I
You're a
really enjoyed
northern girl.
I'm a northern girl in the end, yeah, but probably I don't know how to define myself, but yes. Yeah, I loved being in Manchester. I still have friends there, and yeah, it's a great city. Yeah, but I digress. What was I talking about? Oh yeah,
Salford.
my job there. So after my PhD, I found this postdoc, and it was really super interesting because it was about the intersection of science, technology, policy, and also public perception, because it was all about understanding the public perception of hydrogen as an energy carrier, so being used in transport or energy. All of these things. So that again was something I wasn't very knowledgeable about, but I wanted to discover. So that's another kind of theme in my life, is never specializing, too much on one subject. And I think with hindsight, I'm actually glad I never specialized. But I remember getting a lot of advice, or people saying, um, pointing at the disadvantages of non-specializing, because then how are you going to to sell your services, or to find your niche.
Mm. Or even in
um,
academia, right? It's harder to get a grant if you haven't been like the person within that area with all of
yeah,
your papers kind of
yeah,
like around that area that shows that the next 5 years or this program of research, right? Like it's really hard to do that.
yeah, exactly. So I think that kind of continued in my academic career, because then I then what happened? So I finished my PhD. Oh yeah, I completed a few years of postdoc in Salford, and then what happened? I met a guy, and then we decided that we wanted to, start a family together. But things are always complicated, because in the end, I moved to Portugal
Oh, wow. Okay.
because this guy was is from Portugal, and we had a child together when I was there. My life has been a journey in several disciplines, several countries, and then life stages,
Mm,
and that marked a really, really big transition for me, becoming a mom. So I was in my mid 30s when that happened.
wow.
And yeah, and that kind of changed everything. I think
Yeah.
I think I remember having a chat with a friend once, and we said that I think she actually gave me that quote that we've become women after we had children. So the gender aspect became really evident at that point. Everything. I wasn't a researcher anymore. I was a female researcher after that.
Mm,
I was a woman working in research. I wasn't a researcher.
mm,
I was a woman working in research,
yeah.
and a parent
And a
working in
parent.
research.
Yeah.
Yes. So that kind of changed everything. And then, very also quite rapidly, I became a single parent as well. And I came back to the UK on my own,
Mm,
which was super hard, but it was my choice. It was my choice, but it was really super hard
yeah.
because I had no family. And when I moved to Bristol, because I found a job there, I didn't have anyone I knew. So I started from scratch.
Oh,
So
wow.
no family. No, I mean, my family is in Italy, so I have a family, and we are, very close together, but obviously at a distance. And with my ex, we are very, very good friends. So I've got all the positives from the relationship type
Mm,
side of things. But when I came to Bristol, where I am now, and I've been for 15 years now in Bristol, so I consider
oh, wow.
myself a bit of a adopted Bristolian. Yeah, it's been really hard. It's been very hard. There is no other way to say it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least when I came to Liverpool as a single parent, I had friends already here, which is why I wanted to come here. But it's still hard, like being far away from like yeah, your parents or any family. Like it's been really, really hard. And then like Brexit happened, right, which makes it probably more hard for you to travel. I'm not really sure, but it seemed like it made traveling harder for some people. But yeah, and then, the cost of traveling to see family as well. And yeah, and I totally relate to what you said about you're seen as a parent first. I remember when Dean came up to me and said, when I was at Liverpool, and he said, "Oh, are you part time then?" And I was like, "No, I'm not part time. I'm fitting everything around being a single parent by like working at night, working on weekends, working during my holidays. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. He just assumed that I would just be part time, and it was only because he knew that I had a child, and I don't know. It's, yeah. So he probably saw me as not as productive, even though, yeah, I was working my ass off.
Yeah, yeah, and that is, I guess we were talking about, yeah, academic ways of, structures and how work is managed in academia, the expectations, and yeah, when you care for somebody. So it's not just being a parent, really. I had a lot of conversations when I was in academia because at some point I got really angry and I started talking to people, and even people who didn't have children but had caring responsibilities. For example, they had an elderly family member that they cared for, or somebody who was ill, and we all shared really similar stories. Yes. I can't remember now what I was saying about my, yeah, I think I was talking about when I moved to Bristol with,
Yes.
yeah, my child, and how hard that was. But now I have to say, I mean, I connected to people and I created a network of friends, and I've got friends everywhere in the world. I would say mostly around Europe, but yeah, I've got friends everywhere, and I've got really good friends here in Bristol. So my life has really kind of evolved and changed
Yeah.
over these 15 years.
Yeah.
Um,
And in some ways, like what you chose to do and the way that you chose to veer in your life has made you who you are today, and probably
yeah,
had something to do with like your vision of what you wanted for yourself in a new chapter, so to
yes,
speak.
definitely. So I was talking about disciplinary kind of um, differences, and the fact that I never was somebody to specialize in one discipline. So again, when I moved to Bristol, my attention was on my disciplinary focus, kind of moved towards another area that I hadn't done any research in, that was more understanding travel behaviors. So I ended up working in a new area for me. So looking at how people travel, why people travel the way they do, and how to promote more sustainable travel behaviors. So again, it was the intersection of different disciplines. I was working also with people from different disciplinary backgrounds, psychology. I had worked in sociology, so this was another kind of area there. A bit of economics, a bit of policy, and so on. And I really enjoyed this new area of research. And I basically became, in the end, I became a qualitative researcher. And I learned everything while I was doing my job. So I learned all the, tools and skills of qualitative research methods. And I went on even to do seminars for students, for undergraduates and postgraduates in qualitative methodologies, because I was applying them in my work, and I remember I really enjoyed qualitative type of studies. Yes, so I went from physics through to science, innovation, policy, and then through to more sociology, and then ended up more like a qualitative researcher doing applied kind of transport type of projects, a lot of evaluation. Yeah, and I ended up also working with in different for different people within the department and the faculty. I guess because I was versatile, so my skills could be. So that's when I thought, actually, it's not bad that I've kept a sort of broad um, perspective, because then I can apply in different fields, and I can make an impact in different fields.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that I don't have that super specific knowledge, because there will be another member of the team who will have that, because we don't do research by, alone. The idea of the lone scientist doing, it doesn't make any sense. We are a team.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a team. Um, yes. Um, Now, so in that sense, I always considered myself as a bit of a misfit, because I kind of never really specialized. And that, I think, brought some issues with the structures of, academia. The fact that, for example, in the UK, if people who are listening are not familiar, but the research excellence framework, the REF, um, you are assessed under a unit of, assessment that is kind of disciplinary based. So it was very difficult also for me to fit one particular one, because I had publications in the kind of risk perception or risk assessment literature, and then more about, something about evaluation, and then something else about transport and social exclusion. So it was, again, different things that I've done, really, but never just one.
Yes.
Um,
I think
so in that sense,
yeah, I think
yeah, it
that's an
was,
important thing to like bring up because like that does keep certain people out, but at the same time, like it could be a boon for universities because, departments are closing. I just heard from my partner that his university has gone down from like I think 5 or 6 faculties to 2. Like a huge restructuring to just having 2 faculties.
yeah,
So, at some point when you get down to one faculty, it's just the university. I'm at the university of blah, 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 because there's no faculties. And, okay, if they're going more towards, a single faculty or just 2 broad faculties, then people who can work within the faculty at large must be, an advantage to the university, must be an advantage for systems where knowledge exchange frameworks are now a thing, where, knowledge mobilization is much more important. And then the ref should be more impact based rather than these disciplinaries. Because I remember when they were putting me in places, they were like, so you could go in psychiatry. And I was like, well, sort of, because I do some stuff on diagnostic criteria, but I'm not psychiatry. Okay, well, then you should go here. No, I didn't fit into a lot of places, but I think it's a good message for universities that there's some people that are going to be, I think universities, if they want to be economically viable, are going to have to change that part because we do know UK universities are struggling in terms of
yeah,
economic viability with Brexit, with COVID, with the number of things that have been happening since, 2009, when I came, or 2007 when I came, but like 2009 coalition government, blah, 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 fees, all that kind of stuff. So I think you're like, I hear you and I like think this is what we need to be shouting from the rooftops. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And I agree with you. Like team-based working is there's so much more um like robust science that happens when teams are truly involved, where it's not just, the guy at the front, but everybody's just following. We have got a big replicability problem as well, and I think if many people were watching and being accountable, we wouldn't have as many people just making up data as well. Yeah, sorry. I'm just like, you put that out there, and I'm like, I see this and this, and that's the problem with the lone scientist as well. So I think versatility is a great thing.
yes,
And for
yeah,
being an
yeah.
entrepreneur.
Exactly. So now I can definitely say that I'm glad I kept that kind of diversity of interests, diversity of skills, because I can play with them now, um, and see what works and what doesn't, and take the direction that I want to take.
Yeah. So Miriam, did you
Um,
always feel like though like when you were transferring out of academia, how was that process of like did you always know that, oh, these skills are going to help me in this new thing that I want to do? How did that go for you?
Well, I think in the last, definitely since COVID, because I think COVID, for me and I know for other people, created an opportunity to reassess priorities, values, why we are here, what are we doing, yeah, why was I placed in this world, type of questions. And I had kind of this is a very intuitive thing. So intuitively, so it's not really rational, based on any kind of rational assessment of my skills or anything. But I remember in the past 4 years thinking, how can I use, I know instinctively what I like doing, what I like to do. So, for example, I remember really enjoying the one-to-one interaction with students that I was supervising, seeing somebody growing, and also the lectures and the seminars, when people were engaging and where the students were really engaging and I could see in their eyes, oh, they were learning something or they're enjoying themselves. That was, the best day I could possibly have, a student that comes. And I remember that was one of the last lectures I did, and it was about gender and transport.
Mm.
And it was something that I feel really strongly about. And I remember some of the students then saying, no, I have never thought about this. How, saying the same policy can affect people from, of different backgrounds, genders, ages, in a different way, disability. And they had never thought about it. So, for example, yeah, we were discussing how one policy about which part of the road you're cleaning, whether it's the road itself, where the vehicles move, or including the pavements, can affect women and men in different ways. Because women walk more. So if you don't remove the ice and the snow from the pavements, women who, for example, are more likely to take their kids to school will be affected more because they're not going to be able to do that. That's something that happened in Sweden. It was a piece of research there. Anyway, that's just an example. And I remember, that sensation of feeling, these people have never heard of that, and now they have, and they feel happy for that, and they feel that piece of knowledge has actually improved them as human beings.
Yeah.
Because they can think about those things now, that awareness. And I remember a student coming to me at the end of that class and really thanking me and saying, thank you so much for this class, for this lecture. I really value what I've learned. And I was, wow, that was the best thing. So I think that was, one of my last lectures. And I was so happy about it because I thought, okay, I can use this in the future. This is me. This is me. So that gave me the kind of direction of where I could go. So use those skills that I know I have, those strengths of building that relationship and with, being creating that space for people to debate. That was something I used to do also in the research, because I used to do a lot of like workshop, focus groups, interviews, and giving people that space to express what they wanted to express in a safe environment. I think that was also something I felt that is something I can do and I want to continue doing.
Yeah. It sounds like you like connected a lot with what brought you joy and what brought you passion, what brought you into academia, or at least the parts that you wanted to keep, from academia. Was there any like readjustment that you had to do in terms of thinking about being an entrepreneur? Yeah. And starting your own business?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Although now I'm in that kind of I'm still kind of developing my ideas. Um and I don't know whether I will ever arrive at a place where I can say, oh, now finally I have got it. I think it's going to be an evolution, and it will change as I change as
Yeah.
well.
Well, that's the way
So
you were when you were in academia, right? It was always
yeah,
evolving. And, developmental psychology, a lot of people think of it as, children, but we do a lot of development through our lifespan, right? So there's never a arrive. I think that's how I'm thinking of it now.
yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, what kinds of readjustments have you already done, and where do you see your evolution currently?
Well, the big adjustment has had to be on my mindset
Mm.
because, and I think it can be applied to, anyone coming from employment, going into self-employment. So if and academia is one example of working for an organization. So feeling part of that organization that comes with also a lot of support, because we in academia we had IT support, we had the finance department that dealt with all the purchasing and invoicing, all of that. We had that already. Events, so for events we had a great team. I have to say I miss those people, because I had a really nice relationship with all of the people who were working in those teams. I knew that they were really good, and now I don't have them anymore, and I do miss them. So it's understanding that there is a lot to the business that is about running the business. So it's finding those the same support in a different way, and also the kind of my money and financial type of mindset in a way, and all the discussions in my head of how to price services and things like that. That
Yes.
is something that as a self-employed person I have to do,
Yeah.
and so those have been really, yeah, and I'm working through them. I haven't
Yeah.
haven't solved the dilemmas, but I think you start from somewhere. If I've learned something is, as soon as you've got a kind of prototype of how you want to do things, just test it, do it, and then you learn from that, and then do version 2, and then version 3, and version 4. And you know that there will never be, this is my last version. There is no last version. Well, I guess when when
Yeah.
I'm no longer here on Earth, maybe that will be the last version. But
I love that.
but that's my attitude. Is yeah, you can always change.
Yeah, I mean, even Bruce Lee, like, so I was trained by somebody who was trained by Bruce Lee, so like second, third generation, whatever. And Jeet Kune Do was not finished. You know what I mean? He wasn't finished with the martial arts style, but people are now teaching it as if it was finished, right? But it wasn't finished. So, yeah, I think we're always evolving it. And I think you're right. Like, oh my God, I have to tell you this, Miriam. So I went on a business retreat in Scotland with Carol Devaney. She's running a challenge right now. So definitely do it if you're listening in October 2024. And she told us she still like has, there's not like a set price that she, has for, I mean, obviously she can give people a price and quote, but as a coach, she was like, I can't tell you how to price your products. Like, that's not a set thing. And it's like what you were saying, it's about trialing it, doing the market research, doing the how does it feel for you, and really testing on, what do you need out of it, and what are you comfortable with, because not everybody is comfortable with the pricing structures or has the same lifestyle or works with the same clients. It's really about who you're working with as well, and her saying that, I was like, wow, because I thought she was like the person, right? She'll be the guru who can solve these issues if I just get her, get her in front of me. And, it was still the same struggle. And I loved hearing that because, yeah, like you said, there's no like, okay, well, let me do all the market research. Let me do all of the figuring out before I even start. It's like you got a bit of market research, you got a ballpark, start there, start at the ballpark, start at the, as you
Yeah.
were saying, yeah, that pilot.
Yes, and then I realized how many skills I've developed through academia, through being a researcher. So I will be a researcher forever because that's who I am. And I'm still a researcher outside of academia, even if I'm not doing formal research, but that is about mentality. That's is your mindset. When you don't know something, you approach it as a researcher. So you find more evidence about it. You compare the evidence you've got, and you start kind of experimenting. So experimentation is a great part of when you are in a business because you have to experiment and test different things. Otherwise, you'll never find what works and what doesn't, and in what contexts. So, and also, yeah, asking for help. That's definitely something that I've done a lot, and I'm doing a lot. I'm talking to a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs who are already established in whatever they do,
Yeah.
just to understand what worked for them. So yeah, all these things that in academia sometimes were considered were skills that were not really placed in the foreground, were in the background. Now they all help. They really all help because in academia we are project managers. Uh, we have to do, budgeting. We have to organize, manage people as well as project, lead, even if you're not a leader in the job title, but you're leading. And that was the other kind of misfit maybe that I had when I was in academia. I never really felt like I was a leader of anything because I think it was very much if you're not managing people, then you're not really a leader, or if you're not specialized in that subject, then you're not really leading in that subject. So I thought, I'm not a leader and I'm never going to be. And that really changed because I realized, first of all, that everybody is a leader in their own life. And we are, whether we want or not. The difference is when you become intentional about it, or you just let other people decide what to do with their expectations.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I
that
love
was
that.
a lesson I learned in leadership,
I love
self
that.
leadership.
Yes. Because it is like, I remember being told that I wasn't leading in research because I hadn't gotten, and so I had to do the like, okay, how do we operationalize? How are you operationalizing leading in research? And then finally, when he said, oh, well, for example, like you haven't gotten any, six-figure grants. I was like, oh, okay, so your operationalization is based on money. But it's getting at like, what do people operationalize by you're not a leader? Or what are you operationalizing because of what you've been indoctrinated with, right? What you've
Mhm.
been absorbing from your environment. And, we have a very, I don't know, patriarchal way of seeing leadership anyway.
Yeah, that is related to money or other kind of measures of success that are very much in the patriarchal space. We were talking about that earlier. Yes.
Yes. Yes, I just saw it for what it was. I was like, wait, that is very patriarchal.
Yeah. So in a way, I felt I was also reclaiming a lot of concepts, taking them out of the restrictive place that they had been introduced. And I mean, academia is an example of a patriarchal organization institution. It was born as a patriarchal institution. as many other institutions of our society. So it's good to reclaim concepts and make them for everyone, not just applied in that particular context. So yeah, somebody who decides and intentionally decides these are my values and I'm going to live my life now according to those, and then finding practical steps to make that a reality. I mean, if that's not leadership, then what is it? And it doesn't matter that I don't have all these followers behind me, but I have in a way, because I've had supporters during the journey that believed in me. And the good thing is that my daughter, actually, once, and I think she was serious because I asked, "Are you actually kidding me?" She said, she looks at me as her role model. She really admires me, and that's the best thing that your daughter can tell you, I think.
Absolutely. That's amazing. I love that. And when I did the episode with Sonia Tucci, she was talking about how much her and her daughter kind of reprioritize things together, how they both, like her daughter and her both took like cooking or baking or whatever classes together, and now her daughter is a chef, and she's now left academia. Sonia's now left academia and is in has chocolatinos. So I love that. Like, yeah, this reciprocity that I see with people. I mean, even my own child was like, I know you now more, Mom, than I did when you were working in academia. I didn't really know you because you were so involved with work. And now I have
Yeah,
more time, right? So
yeah.
it's that reprioritization, that reevaluation of success.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, but I have to say, in that respect, and again, this is something that probably relates to that feeling a misfit. Um, since I had a child, and especially when I became then a single parent, I think becoming a single parent was the second big transition. I mean, becoming a parent is a big transition, but becoming a single parent, and it was mainly by choice, that was another huge transition, because it's not just about it's not about, oh, you just need to cook for two or to do the laundry for two. You're responsible for a human being on your own. If you take a decision that has negative impacts, that's on you. And that's just on me. Yeah. So that heavy weight of that responsibility. And I decided very early on that I wasn't going to sacrifice my life to academia. So I made an intentional kind of decision that I wasn't going to work like evenings, weekends on a regular basis. I did on occasions, I did. And also when projects demanded that I was available because I was doing some field work and I had to travel. So I did that, but I never let it take kind of hold of me as a habit. I never fell into that habit, and I never bought completely into it. So I was seeing other people who would work all hours of the day and night, and constantly talking about, oh, I've done this at 1 a.m. last night or 3 a.m. And I really felt sorry, honestly. And I was glad that I wasn't doing it. And I knew my career probably never took off, because I never bought into that mentality. But I'm glad I didn't, because then I was able to A, look after my health, and B, look after my daughter's health and everything else. I couldn't have done it otherwise.
Yes.
I wouldn't have been able to, because I didn't have grandparents or anyone who could step in. If I was ill, that was it. You see, I didn't have, oh yeah, somebody else will take over. Nobody will take over. It's just me. So that pressure, I thought my health actually, and we shouldn't even think in those terms, to be honest. You don't need to have a child to feel that your health is the most important thing. So if anybody is listening, your health is the most important thing in your life. Think about it.
I think that's so important. Your life is the most important thing. Like, yeah, I'm just going to repeat it in case anybody, stepped away to do some dishes or something. You don't need the excuse of having a child or someone that's
Yeah,
depending on you to take care of yourself.
yeah,
But I do know a lot of people, if that's the reason why you're taking care of yourself, that's a good reason too. Sometimes I have to think I need to say no to that because it gives me time to take care of my child, when actually I should say no because I don't have the stress, like I don't have the energy to add that on top of my workload. And I want to, do yoga in the morning or whatever it is, or do Pilates or whatever. But I don't that doesn't convince me as much as going, oh, it'll take away time from my kid. So sometimes I just trick myself with my brain and just go, oh, it'll take, time from your kid. Oh, no, I'm going to say no when it's actually for me. Sometimes it works. But if you have to use that, I think like whatever works in terms of giving yourself those priorities. But
yeah,
like you said, you don't need that. You don't need to deserve rest
exactly.
and health.
Yeah, yeah,
So, how do you manage now your energy? Because as an entrepreneur, obviously, there's a lot of energy that, is required for starting out. Like, how did you manage those conflicting messages also
yeah.
of an entrepreneur who's like business suit, always, business cards at the ready?
Funnily enough, part of my business is also around wellness and completing my qualification as a Pilates instructor. So that is also part of my coaching package. So I'm a coach for the mind, but also for the body, let's say. Um, and energy is something I consider a lot because practicing Pilates and it consumes energy, a lot of energy, and being able to understand, yeah, where that energy is and which parts of the day I'm particularly, I'm more kind of able to do certain things rather than others. And that's something, again, I had to learn through trial and error. And as I said at the beginning, I revealed my age. Um, my age now is an age where there are other transitions. So yeah, the menopause. Hello, menopause.
Hello, menopause. I think I've already said goodbye to the perimenopause. So, hello,
I mean, to be honest, I am assuming because I actually do not know. I haven't done a blood test, or there are some tests that, yeah, but I'm assuming, and it does affect my sleep.
Yes.
Um, I mean, luckily, I haven't had the hot flashes or that type of thing,
Me
but it
either.
does affect my sleep and it does affect my anxiety because I've always been a person who can get really anxious, and I've learned how to manage it, but it does affect
Yeah.
my anxiety and my energy levels because if I sleep badly or I have I've got, yeah, stuff in my head that I'm thinking a lot. It does affect where my energy goes, and instead of fighting it, I go with it. I don't fight my body. I don't fight. If I'm feeling tired, I will rest. And I'm lucky that I'm lucky, yes, but I've also kind of prepared it this way. I
Mhm.
didn't, when I left academia, I planned it quite, again, as a researcher. I did research. How can I do that without becoming, losing the house or, end up in the streets? I planned it in a way that I could now take care of myself so I don't have the rush immediately to be earning loads of money or to do things that other people might think, oh, you need to do that to get all this income, you have to, there are so many people telling you what you should be doing. And I'm like, no, I've planned it this way because I want to go with my flow rather than going against
Yeah.
my flow. And I have to say, in academia, I couldn't do that. It was very much. When you speak to other people, they feel that academia is there is a lot of freedom and a lot of flexibility, and I think to a certain point there is, but there are also very inflexible structures as well. And I think then it depends on the institution. But as a system, the flexibility is probably more on us becoming very flexible rather than the system being very flexible. So sometimes I was having meetings where I was really, really tired or not being able to really work when I was more able to. So I think being self-employed helps in that sense, because then I can find when I'm very productive, and productive means different things to different people. But so finding those hours where I can really get what I need to achieve my goals, and directing the energy there. And then when I need to rest, I can rest. And it's helpful also that I found things, again, intentionally, I'm doing things that are the things that I'm passionate about. So coaching, Pilates, and the consultancy around impact that is mostly with charities and community interest companies. So all of that is something that really comes from my heart. So in a way, it's easy to, it's not easy work, but it's easy to go in that flow, I think.
Yes. Paying attention to where that flow goes, it makes it not like, it's not that it's not work, but it feels less draining because you're in a space where your skills and your experiences and the skills that you find most worthwhile and easy to use are the resources that you're then using in that space,
Yeah.
and it feels a lot more sustainable. I was just thinking about how I had Yvette Martinez Vu from LinkedIn, right, on one of the Building Beyond Academia guest expert sessions, and how she talked about that kind of energy management. And it's really making me think about what we're talking about right now. So definitely give her a follow on LinkedIn, everybody.
Yes.
If you're not following her on, oh, actually Instagram as well. She's got some great content on Instagram. But I love that because I think that was one thing where, when do I want to work during the day? Am I a morning person? I'm an afternoon. I had to be a morning person because my child was going to school, and then I'd be having meetings at 9 a.m., right? So you have to be a morning person. But I was spending a lot of time being tired, and now I'm paying more attention to, I don't have to have meetings at 9 a.m. if I don't want to. I can have them at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. because that's my choice, And so I think it's what you said. And then I just never had a car, I mean, talk about like I'm always interested in your travel posts, because I'm like, okay, what's happening in the travel world? Because I decided not to buy a car when I came to Europe. And now it's 19 years I haven't had a car, which is incredible because, when you grow up in the US. But I got rid of Spotify, I got rid of Netflix, I got because like you said, I wanted that slow growth of a business, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't having the outgoings that meant I was panicking about money.
Yeah. Yeah, in the end, it's really making your own definition of success and what it means.
Yeah.
I think that's really good about being self-employed and having your own business. And actually, I think now I feel not a misfit anymore in the kind of business environment. When I'm talking to other business owners or people who run their own show, I feel part of that community. So I felt really the belonging that I I probably never felt when I was in academia,
Yeah. That's
because I didn't have to justify myself. Yeah, I'm not justifying. I remember there was a lot of justification, but I'm a single parent, but um, I come from another country, but I'm not going to be able to work on this project in the weekend, or when I've got other things. When I'm preparing my lectures, I can't do that at the same time. Always explaining or justifying why I could. Now I don't have to justify anymore, and it's very refreshing, and I will make mistakes, and that's fine. I've put that into the into the equation that mistakes will be made. But again, it's all learning, learning, learning. Yeah, if you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. That's my attitude. So it's great that I remember really dreading every year, thinking, oh, I need to publish something that will be put on the, for the ref. Um,
yeah.
and that dread has gone because all those stars and internationally leading or world leading. I can't remember now the different categories, but to me they sounded really crazy, because let's say I'm doing something very local, very the benefit is localized, but it's a lot of benefit I'm producing. I'm impacting in a positive way the local community. Why is that only one star? And I never understood that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I don't have to understand it anymore
I
now.
I think it's a capitalistic system. I think because like I've been working with somebody to find a job outside of academia. I've been coaching someone, and she's a person who has a long history in journalism, became an academic, and her focus is on how local journalism is how we get true and real democracy. Because if you look at like, the big newspapers, the big media companies who own all of the newspapers, right? Like the Rupert Murdoch, whatever. That's not where we get our democracy. That's where democracy is going down, isn't it? But like local journalism is where we get it, right? So her research is right off the bat local and not internationally leading. But I'm like, okay, this doesn't make any sense, because actually it's how all of us are going to save ourselves in the world that we're currently living, right? Is local journalism is going to make a worldwide impact. But to then, like you said, create the justification for that, it's going to take a few words to lead to that, right? And are they going to understand that? Are they actually going to agree with that? So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just like that was proof positive right there, that you go into a system where there's no category that fits you. And it just goes back to the whole misfit thing of like, I don't fit into this category. My research doesn't fit into these categories. Are these categories even valid?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
um, so one thing that I'm gonna spring on you, Miriam, because last episode I was asking Paulina what song she feels is her song right now. What's like, a brainworm that you have right now? What's your academic breakup song? It could be, or your life going forward. Yeah. Do you have a song that is in your head right now?
Well, it's in my head only because I saw a documentary. Well, it was a film actually on Aretha Franklin and her song, "Freedom."
Ah, I know. I was just, yes, I think I have
Yeah.
respect on the playlist.
Oh, respect. Any of her songs, yeah, they have been in my head because I recently saw the film.
I love that.
But also, yeah, I guess freedom. Anything with
Yeah.
freedom in the lyrics will be my song.
Yeah. I love that. And one thing that I did was like put Paulina's song onto the reel, and so I was like, this is so cool. I can then like put this song on there, and it's such like a happy, people have brought really happy songs to me. So yeah, that makes me happy. Thank you, Miriam, for participating in that. And I'm actually planning, speaking of what you were saying about coaches, I did, at the beginning, hire coaches that gave me specific advice on like, this is the way you do it. This is the way you create wealth, blah, 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 blah. And I had to find a way that was more, to me, because I was just following other people's scripts again, right? And so I'm doing a 5-day challenge in next month, November 4th. And it's going to be the 5 decades of Luna. 5 days, 5 decades. It's going to be 70s music, 80s music, 90s music. And it's going to be like doing an exploration of yourself and what you want. That's like a road trip. You know what I mean? Like you've got the cassette tape, your little mixtape, and you're finding yourself along the way, and it's because of the journey, and it's because of who you meet along the way. That's what I want the energy to be like. And I was like, that, like, once I thought of that, I was like, now I feel like doing a 5-day challenge. The rest, the ones that I did at the very beginning of my career, it was just because somebody told me I need to do that. This time it's for us, you know what I mean? It's for me. It's brings me joy. So I feel like I'm finding my misfit in in this space as well. So if that gives somebody, some inspiration or courage to just do it your own way, because
Yeah,
you know, what are you doing it for? Life's too short.
absolutely. Yes.
Well, where can people find you? Where can people find what you're offering, your services? Yeah, just tell us about Miriam and how to find more of you.
Yes, so if people want to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn. So if you look for Miriam Ricci, Ricci, you will find me on LinkedIn. I use, but more for personal reasons, I use Facebook, not really Instagram. So LinkedIn is the best. I don't have a website yet, but I'm working on it. For the moment, as I said, I'm building my business, and I'm creating a kind of consultancy and coaching businesses where I provide mainly to local organizations. So, for example, the impact evaluation is around understanding, evidencing the impact that local organizations make in their communities. And then in the coaching space, I offer kind of mindset, but also body coaching with Pilates movements. Um, and I'm developing that side of the business at the moment. So I want to offer again to local businesses, and I'm going to start actually teaching Pilates in my former university where I was
Oh,
working. So
wow.
I'm going, yeah, to teach Pilates there as a trial and see how it works. But I really want to bring Pilates to the workplace, so that people can practice it where they work, and also they can improve the way they sit or they stand while they are working.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm developing offers kind of built around mindset, but also the body, because we're not just here in the mind, we are, bodies.
It's all the physics coming together with the sociology there.
Yes,
We are multidisciplinary just by being human.
always, always. Yes.
Thank you so much, Miriam. It's been such a lovely conversation with you.
Thank you, Luna, for having me.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye bye.